Start the recording, and hopefully you can all see the title slide right now. Let me start by welcoming the amazing Krista Hiser, who is Professor of Composition and Rhetoric. She is Faculty Service and Sustainability Learning Coordinator at Kapi'olani Community College in Hawaii. She also serves as the Interim System Sustainability Curriculum Coordinator at the University of Hawaii Office of Sustainability. This webinar is the second in the SCC series focusing on the AASHE Regional Centers for Sustainability across the curriculum. We've already heard from Weston Drips from Furman, and with sincere thanks to Julian Docher-Smith of AASHE for this coordination and collaboration between SCC and AASHE. We will continue to showcase an AASHE Regional Center each month going forward. This webinar, of course, focuses on the University of Hawaii's Regional Center. Krista Hiser's presentation is titled, Now What? Transforming Curriculum as an AASHE Regional Center for Sustainability Across the Curriculum. For those who have not seen the introduction and those listening to the recording, I'll simply say the University of Hawaii System Office of Sustainability is excited to be recognized as an AASHE Regional Center for Sustainability across the curriculum. As part of the Sustainability Curriculum series highlighting the offerings of AASHE Regional Centers, this webinar with Krista Hiser will cover the following topics and will focus on the interests of the attendees. The question Krista asks is, how can our work help you? So among the different topics that Krista listed in the announcement were nuts and bolts about the mission, goals, and organization of the University of Hawaii's Regional Center, the S designation, a system-wide minor in sustainability that's embedded in the general education curriculum, the meeting of wisdoms, which is at the intersection of indigenous epistemologies and Western empirical science, assessment, how research, including focus groups and learning outcome pilots, are informing curriculum efforts, and finally, transforming curriculum, how empowering faculty to translate sustainability content and engage students through active pedagogies and teach hard truths about climate change across all academic disciplines can be implemented. I will leave it to Krista to elaborate on each of those points, and I know that she will be looking for your input as well. With that, Krista, the floor is yours.
Well, mahalo, Ira. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who's invested their time today to listen to this webinar. Ira, I found these spaces to be very valuable in listening to others and also just composing my own thoughts. It really helps me to focus and share. So I am grateful for that opportunity, and for everyone who's listening today. I hope you're able to get something that helps you in your work. I have to begin by thanking and acknowledging hundreds of people who are part of this initiative across the University of Hawaii system. I won't do that by name for hundreds of people, but Matthew Lynch is the coordinator for the whole UH system, operations, facilities, energy. We have a very small office. Matt likes to refer to us as a small, nimble startup, but we're really able to accomplish a lot. And we do that as a networked institution by working with faculty and staff and administrators across all of our campuses. So we are all about partnerships and connections. And this center is a decentralized networked thing that belongs to everybody in the system. So, oh, I misspelled urgent. urgency. It was so urgent that I forgot an R. I wanted to start by talking about just kind of what's on my mind, what I'm thinking about, and sort of what gets me up in the morning to do this work, aside from rainbows and roosters that get me up in the morning. I wanted some of the words that I might share include urgency, vision, coherence, and scope. And then these topics, I'll pause and I'll give you folks an opportunity to connect. I won't talk about all of these things in great detail, but which of these are you most interested in? So I'll just start with that. I have been teaching sustainability. So I'm a classroom teacher. I teach English 100, and I have been teaching sustainability as a theme in my course for about 17 years. And I used to show this video in my classes called Advertising and the End of the World. And I had to check it out on VHS, and I had to rent a special machine and show it to my class. So I've probably seen this video 30, 40, 50 times. I recently discovered it again online. It was streaming through a service through my library, and I recently watched it again. It's a video, it's produced by Jolly, who is a professor at UMass Amherst and the founder of the Media Education Foundation. And I hope this is going to work, but I wanted to show just 2 minutes from this video in order to explain why I do the work that I do and why I really care about the Sustainability Curriculum Consortium and the work of the AASHE Regional Centers for Sustainability across the curriculum. So I'm going to cross my fingers that this works. So this is a video that I used to show to my class in around 2001. So Professor Joly produced it in 1998.
Even at their mightiest, were tiny compared with the size of the planet. The Roman Empire meant nothing to the Arctic or the Amazon. But now, the way of life of one part of the world in 1/2 century is altering every inch and every hour of the globe. The situation is so bad that the scientific community is desperately trying to get the rest of the world to wake up to the danger. 1,700 of the world's leading scientists, including the majority of Nobel laureates in the sciences, recently issued this appeal. Human beings and the natural world are on a collision course. If not checked, many of our current practices may so alter the living world that it will be unable to sustain life in the manner we know. Fundamental changes are urgent if we are to avoid the collision our present course will bring. It's important to avoid the prediction of immediate catastrophe. We've already done a lot of damage, but the real environmental crisis will not hit until sometime in the middle of the next century. So we have some time, but not much. But to avoid the catastrophe, we have to take action now. We have to put in place the steps that will save us in 70 years' time. The metaphor to think of is that of an oil tanker heading for a crash on the shore. Because it's so huge, because of the momentum that has been built up, to stop crashing, the oil tanker has to start turning well before it reaches the coast. We have to anticipate the momentum. If we start turning too late, we will smash into the coast. That's where we are right now. We have to make fundamental changes in the way we organize ourselves, in what we stress in our economy, if we want to avoid the effect 60, 70, 80 years down the road. We have to take action now.
So I realize that I have been thinking about that video for 17 years, and specifically that image of that metaphor that he uses of the oil tanker. The first green dotted line was the beginning of my teaching career in higher education. And the second dotted line that he shows is where we are today, which is, it's where we are sliding past. that window where we can really reduce carbon and change the climate situation. But that oil tanker is a metaphor, and it can be anything. So what if the oil tanker is higher education? Higher education is a pivotal piece of the future and how we respond to some of these challenges. What we teach, what students learn is incredibly important. And higher education, our institutions are very big, they're very complex. You cannot just instantly transform your curriculum and teach something different. So how do we do that? The other reason I want to show this video is that when I went back and I found this link, I actually discovered that Professor Joly produced an update. It's a sequel, but it's really the same analysis presented in an updated fashion. And I really encourage everybody to watch that. It's called Advertising at the Edge of the Apocalypse. It's on YouTube. I encourage you to watch them back to back because anyone who's listening to this webinar, I think you can handle. So this brings me to one function that I personally feel like, what motivates me? Where am I coming from? What motivates me is supporting faculty in teaching hard truths. So our university system president, David Lasner, is a signatory on the We Are Still In declaration supporting the Paris Agreement. And I'm interested in anything that we can do that supports faculty in understanding the situation and in feeling empowered to teach these difficult topics. We recently drafted an editorial taking an opportunity to articulate 8 teaching points that we support faculty in explaining. So anytime that I can find a way to connect with faculty, whether they're research faculty or science faculty, and make it easier for them to integrate difficult material, hard truths into whatever they're teaching across the discipline. I think that's what helps us to make incremental change. So I like to do work like creating curricular containers, you know, little bureaucratic things. It seems like nothing will change until all of a sudden it does. So I'm gonna call these acceleration and pivot points. And this is just an example from our handbook on sustainability curriculum. This is a long and deep effort we've been involved in. And you kind of chip away at things and you chip away at things, and then all of a sudden something happens that shifts the whole thing. You know, like in 2015 when Aurora Winslade worked with the University of Hawaii system and helped us develop, and with the help of students, pass an executive policy on sustainability at the system level. This gave us an executive overview to support faculty who were teaching sustainability. It integrated it into their workload and made it something that they didn't have to do as an extra committee, you know, like the Earth Day Planning Committee or the Green People Committee, which I was on for my whole life. This really brought it into the everyday work of faculty. Faculty have in their primary job function maintaining currency in their discipline, and there is not a single academic discipline that isn't touched by sustainability issues. So how do we help faculty to do their job? You know, that's where I'm coming from. So I like to do a lot of the legwork. I go to a lot of meetings. I watch a lot of video. I read reports on sea level rise. And I try to digest and share those for faculty just to save them some time and help them focus where to look, what to read, what they need to know. Because whether or not we are directly teaching a sustainability focused course, we are interacting with the next generation. They look to us to understand, can I drink the water here? Where is our recycling going right now? They ask us these questions whether or not it's the content of our course. So I think it's important for faculty to understand what's going on locally in the legislation, in the environment, with solutions-based movements. So I try to just understand this very big picture and translate it where I can for faculty. And then the other thing is creating these curricular containers. So just last fall, we got this little attribute code in our registration system, a sustainability focus code. And that was another pivot and acceleration point. It just changed everything, because now we can make certificates, we can move this system-wide minor, and I can talk a little bit more about that later on. So what does all this have to do, in my mind, with becoming an AASHE Regional Center for Sustainability across the curriculum? As Ira said, this is a focused effort, and I think that the AASHE leadership, in particular, I've worked with Megan and Julian, have made, and Daita, of course, have made a really smart decision in the way they've targeted this. Sustainability in higher education is a huge field, yeah. And then even curriculum is a huge area. Ryan Johnson from Arizona State University described it to me once as looking at sustainability as a discipline. That's sustainability science. That's bachelor's programs in sustainability, master's, PhD. That's ISSP certification. That's the academic discipline and emerging professions of sustainability science, climate change officers. That's another thing. What I do and what I think we're doing with the AASHE Regional Centers is sustainability as a value. Sustainability as a transdisciplinary endeavor integrated into sustainability. That's what the AASHE Regional Centers for Sustainability across the curriculum are all about. So I showed this slide before in another webinar I did for Ira. This is the University of Hawaii 10 campus system, and all the places that our amazing faculty are teaching sustainability. We know it's happening. You know it's happening at your own college. Your faculty are amazing. They're our greatest asset. So we have 2 sustainability as a discipline programs at UH Maui College and UH West Oahu. And then we have all these other degree programs, certificates. These are all at our Manoa campus, places where sustainable building is taught, places where indigenous mindset is taught, practices. Where else can you get an AA degree in Polynesian voyaging? All of these faculty are experts that we can learn from. And when we work together, we're like a giant brain. I see each of our faculty as a neuron, as a node on a giant brain. And what we're doing with sustainability across the curriculum is we're creating synaptic connections. We're myelinizing a great collective brain. It's a form of distributed cognition. So I share this because I came up with a new metaphor to describe the AASHE Regional Centers for Sustainability across the curriculum, and I'm going to share that with you now. So what I like about this approach, aside from its targeted nature, which was a really smart decision by the AASHE leadership, is that I believe it's true that most of the coordinators involved with the AASHE Regional Centers for Sustainability across the curriculum would have been involved at some point in their careers with Peggy Bartlett and Jeff Chase's work and their training, which grew out of the Ponderosa Project and is now the AASHE Sustainability Curriculum Leadership Program. So I participated in this in maybe 2010, and I know that it has really informed the way I've shaped professional development activities at the University of Hawaii system. So this informs our approach, and I think lends coherence to all the AASHE regional centers. What I've taken away from Peggy Bartlett and Jeff Chase's work and from that workshop experience is that sustainability issues and the solutions, they're place-based. So whatever's being taught, whatever the professional development is, it's grounded in the place where you are. It's informed by its context. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to teaching sustainability or to professional development. And the second thing that I appreciated and that I know has stuck with me is that faculty know what they're doing. I mean, these are amazing, hardworking, problem-solving, really smart people with tremendous depth and disciplinary knowledge. So what Peggy and Jeff do is bring a group of experts together from different disciplines, and they just lay out a regional problem. They bring somebody in to explain, you know, what's going on with the water table or with the certain species of animals or with the energy system or with the recycling. Bring in a problem and then help faculty to talk about it from their disciplinary perspective. This is how faculty learn best. Faculty can learn from each other. I really believe in a peer-to-peer dialogue. So our approach to professional development is to create spaces where faculty can share with each other, get a little bit of information about what's going on, and then help each other design courses and projects and research and learning experiences that will help students to understand these things in an empowered way. And then the last thing that really stayed with me from that sustainability curriculum leadership experience was that they would just send you out onto the UC San Diego campus and they'd say, just go and sit by a tree for a while. Just sit. Don't do anything. Just sit. Really absorb what you've learned. Faculty are so busy that we don't have time to let this in. So that practice of reflection and really allowing myself to be open to what I'm learning and to just absorb the situation has informed our professional development. To me, this evokes the work of Parker Palmer. How do we teach as whole people? How do we help faculty to teach these hard truths in a way that is empowering for students and doesn't burn out our faculty? So I really think that that lends a coherence to the whole national endeavor of the AASHE Regional Centers. So what we want to do, we want to serve Hawaii. We want to support our own people. Yeah, we have lots of students, lots of faculty, lots of courses. You know, 5,500 courses that we could be working with faculty to help them improve and integrate sustainability issues. Here's the regional centers. So I'm also interested in working with this network across the United States. And then also AASHE is, AASHE is an international organization as well. So I see these whole networks as a connective tissue for sustainability in higher education. The connective tissue is like the leading edge of somatic science and cognitive science. Yeah, it's this layer distributed through the body, and our brain cells actually are distributed, you know, in our gut and across our body through glia cells, and it's just all this cutting edge research. So I see the AASHE Regional Centers as a connective tissue for higher education. And then here in Hawaii, I also am interested in we see ourselves as part of sustainability in higher education in the US, but also as part of the Pacific. So how can we look to institutions in the Pacific and work with them, network with them, be the connective tissue for sustainability in higher education? I have a very big picture view and a very long-term view. If what we're looking at, what do our institutions look like 20 years from now? How will we be involved in helping with new skills, new technologies, teaching in new ways? There's so many forces of change operating on higher education, not even just sustainability. So how are we going to change, and how are we going to do that together as a network? Yeah. These are some pictures from our Hawaii State Sustainability in Higher Education Summit last year, bringing faculty together, beginning from that place of connection. Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, and I wanted to pause here and again kind of give a sense of some of the things I could talk about. I wouldn't have time to talk about them all. And just pause for a moment, and maybe in the chat room, if there's something on this list that you have particular questions about, or I can go more or less. I just wanted to pause for a minute here and see what thoughts any of you listeners are having. Is that all right, Ira?
Krista, what I would suggest is that you launch into talking about your S designation in a bit more detail while the attendees post their other preferences in the chat box. And when you're done with the S designation, I can tell you what they've requested.
Okay, that sounds great. I'll actually talk next about some of our upcoming events. So being an AASHE Regional Center allows us to invite other people to some of our events. And we have one coming up, which is the Grand Challenges of Conservation Institute. And I just kind of like to show how we visualize our academic year. So the Grand Challenges Institute is coming up May 14, 15, 16. It's listed in the AASHE calendar. This is the registration page. This is a partnership with our Sensor Hawaii initiative. And the Grand Challenges Institute will bring together 40 to 50 faculty from different disciplines, and we'll present some of the problems, issues of conservation from different perspectives. And then we will support using the Sensor course design model. We will support those faculty in really doing some nitty-gritty work in developing courses. Like they'll actually write a syllabus, they'll design some key assignments, they'll make connections with community partners, and they'll learn from indigenous scholars and empirical researchers talking about how their various perspectives inform the grand challenges of conservation. So that's coming up. And then conservation will become the theme of our Many Minds, One University project. So I have one more short video, and then after this video, I'll pause again. So Many Minds, One University is this idea. What could we accomplish if we focused all of our institutional energy, all of our thought power, our research, all the student projects? What could we accomplish if we focused on those things together? So this is what we'll be doing at the Grand Challenges with the Grand Challenges of Conservation. And this is a 1-minute video from last year when we focused on the Grand Challenges of Water. And then after this, I'll pause and see where you all would like to go.
accomplish if we were to focus our collective efforts and resources to answer one essential question of sustainability? How can we accomplish our state's goal of increasing local food production 20% by 2020?
Oh my gosh, that's not the video I wanted. That was the previous year. That was food. Sorry, we have another MM1 video, but I didn't bring up the right one. What is the news, Ira?
Okay, so the incoming suggestions. Let's see. There's one request for minor wisdom and assessment. So that's a bundle there. Another request for S designation and assessing sustainability learning. A separate question for you about offering up suggestions for approaching faculty to increase interdisciplinary sustainability work in various curriculum. And a further comment from Gary saying that having connections in Australia, Bali, and Costa Rica, he loves the connective map and wants to work on connecting them this way.
Marvelous. I can't wait to hear more about that. That sounds great. I like to take the assessment topic. I have 2 slides on assessment. You know, while we still have some energy before I talk too much. Assessment is challenging. Anyone who says that they've mastered assessing sustainability learning, like they're, well, either I want to learn from them or they're kidding. It's very challenging. And this is really, I think, an edge for our work and something that we can do together. So this semester, I'm working on a pilot, and we're actually piloting these assessments with students in sustainability-focused courses. So what are they actually learning about sustainability, and how is it impacting their choice of major and their success in the course and their connections with other courses? It's a very complex topic. So what we have accomplished is we've narrowed it down to 3 tools that we're using. One is called the SALG, Student Assessment of Their Learning Gains. This is a free tool, and it is developed by Sensor. Sensor, I have another short video about Sensor that I'll show you. Science Education for New Civic Engagements and Responsibilities. And this SALG tool, developed by Stephen Carroll, is awesome. It's free, and it's really easy to work with. So we are asking students, this is the screen from our pilot assessment, what did you learn in this course about sustainable economics, about ecosystem services, carbon footprints, some of these core concepts of sustainability that are part of our designation. And then another tool that I'm very interested in is the SULI test. Deb Rowe talked about this at last year's AASHE meeting, and I assume we'll learn more about it next fall. I know that they've been developing tailored questions for the United States region. This is an international test, and I've been kind of floating it around, having our faculty take it. They find it challenging, and then they find it interesting. You know, what do you know and what do you not know? So actually on Earth Week, we're doing a campus baseline, and I'm spending 2 days in the library trying to get as many students as I can just to take the SULI test for extra credit and as an Earth Week activity. And then we're also giving the SULI test to students in our sustainability focused courses just to, you know, take a baseline. I think it helps us. We're not evaluating students by the SULI test, but I think it helps us to see where do we teach sustainability well, maybe the environmental area, and then what are we missing? You know, some of the human rights issues, water issues. The SULI test has a lot of just fascinating questions in it, and I find it really fun. So I'm really grateful for that tool, and I'm really working to pilot that. And I'll probably be able to share something about these pilots at the AASHE meeting in the fall. And then the last one is we're developing a rubric from the key sustainability competencies developed by Arnhem Veek from Arizona State University. We love working with Arnhem. He's so smart, and he's broken down a lot of these competencies. So we're taking that and developing a rubric that we can use to assess student final projects. So a team of us are going to go to different classes that teach sustainability and assess those different key competencies, which are things like future thinking, systems thinking, interpersonal thinking, that kind of thing. So we're developing that as a rubric. And then I'll mention one more, and then I'll pause for a minute if there are any questions. I also worked on a project for the Teagle Foundation. This was a grant. It was a national consortium grant, and we developed a pre and post test on sustainability. And I share this because the resources are still there on this website that's called Teaching to Big Questions. And you can actually go into these results and see what happened when you do a pre and post test in the course of a semester. The greens are gains in sustainability learning. The reds are losses. So one thing that happened was, students said the question was, climate change is a problem that we need to address now. And students actually went back on that. So it looks like losses, but it just shows how complex it is, because what they're really learning in the course of just one semester is, of course, how big and complicated these issues are. So this website has some really cool assessment materials that includes the pre and post, and also the rubric that we use for assessing reflection essays. So that's pretty cool stuff. Should I pause, Ira, are there any questions on assessment?
No specific questions on assessment. You still have the standing question about suggestions for increasing interdisciplinary approaches in various curricula, and then there were the other requests as well.
Yeah. Well, I've presented before about our sustainability designation initiative. I've recorded another webinar on that, and I'm always happy to share it. I'll be sharing again at the AASHE meeting this fall. I'll talk a little bit about how that is interdisciplinary and what we have accomplished with this approach. So we use the AASHE STARS criteria, and then we've also developed core concepts. We talk with each other about what is sustainability? What does it mean to teach sustainability? And we've come up with 7 core concepts and a whole bunch of key terms. And again, that's about coherence, creating common vocabulary for students across campus, across the whole system. So from those courses, and this is the answer to that question about interdisciplinarity. The designation is a way of getting faculty to come into a room with 5 or 10 or 15 other faculty. So we call it a talk story intake, and we say, oh, just come and talk to the committee. This is a formal faculty senate committee managing sustainability curriculum. Come and talk story about your course. And this is the only time in my career that I've been in a room with a physicist, a nurse, a philosopher, an artist, and a communication specialist, and an ecologist, and a botanist, talking about one person's course. Oh, what about this? Oh, have you taught this? Oh, have you seen this? Oh, what about this book? Oh, my students write this kind of paper. Well, really? My students are writing the same paper. Who knew? You know, how can we create a mechanism where faculty come together and talk to each other? Not only does this get them to make interdisciplinary connections, but I think it really helps the students, because then the students aren't getting a whole bunch of gloom and doom, as Deborah would say. The students are getting a more scaffolded and a more coherent multidisciplinary approach. Students experience college in a multidisciplinary way anyway. They're not just in one class, they're in 3 or 4 or 5. So out of our sustainability designation, we have created an academic subject certificate in sustainability. It's a very small entry-level certificate embedded in our general education. And out of these courses, we created a cohort schedule that functions like a FIG, a freshman interest group. So students could take a philosophy course, an English course, Pacific Island Studies, and an economics course, an ecology course. They could take all of those courses with that sustainability focus for one semester, and they can finish most of this certificate in an academic year. And then they'll do a capstone project, which will connect them to undergraduate research or to service learning, community-based problem solving. All of those things are interdisciplinary. So getting faculty to talk about their course is the best benefit of having an S designation program. And it all is about getting together to do this interview, what we call this talk story interview. It's just been so much fun. And so I'm really excited about this academic subject certificate. And then each of our community colleges will, within 2 years, have a parallel certificate. And we call that a system-wide minor equivalent. Creates, I think, a group of students who can then go into one of those bachelor's programs in sustainability science management or community food systems, or they can just take that lens into their major or into their life. It becomes part of their general education curriculum as an embedded certificate.
So Krista, I think there are some questions that have come in that could help us tie things up.
Great.
The first thing I would like to say is that you've mentioned waiting until the AASHE meeting in the fall to talk about SULI test. As I mentioned in my opening, although my microphone may not have been working, we do have on June 7th Brooke Suter's webinar for SCC on SULI test, and at the SCC faculty conference, which comes up in late June, way before the AASHE conference in the fall, an interactive workshop that Brooke will lead on SULI test. There is, however, another question for you, if you could make available some resources or links about the other assessment tools that you mentioned. That's number one. Let me just tell you the other two that have come in that I think are worth addressing before we reach the top of the hour. Okay. Bethany, one of our attendees, is clarifying that she's not faculty, but she's sustainability staff, and is curious about how you might suggest sustainability staff work with or lead faculty toward more cohesive sustainability-focused courses. And Gary, another attendee on the line, is asking, is there coming an assessment on qualitative? What can we look forward to when initiatives are accomplished? What the future holds for quality of life? So in responding to that package of questions, I think that should lead us to the end of our time.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if I can. Wow, those are great questions. Working with staff is really important. Somebody actually asked, we put out a press release about the Regional Center for Sustainability across the curriculum. And one of the responses we got was, you know, oh, can other people come to these? Can students come? Can the community come? Can staff come? And I was like, oh, wow, that's an interesting question. I tend to look at faculty as the participants in this. But you're right that working with staff is very important, not just developing those sustainability as a living lab type of activities on campus, but in the planning. So we have really tried to, I guess decentralize would be the word, to take the sustainability work out of one committee so that we don't have one committee that does all the green stuff, but instead it's distributed. So we have a committee, a separate committee that works on our sustainability plan, which includes staff, so that they're all talking to each other. Yeah, how can staff inform curriculum? I think that's a great question and a really important question. I think it's also important to preserve spaces for faculty where they can be with each other and where they really feel safe to kind of let down their expertise, to not be the expert, to ask questions, to talk about stuff they don't know or totally understand. So creating a place where faculty are just together, kind of peer-to-peer, is also important. So that was a great question. The other one about qualitative and quality of life, I think I might be interested to follow up with that person. If you'd like to send me an email about that, I love the question. I think that I'll just close on a point I made at the very beginning, that to me this whole initiative is about transforming the curriculum. If we didn't need to do this, we wouldn't do it. When we get to a point at the University of Hawaii system, what if we got to a place where half of our students could achieve this minor in sustainability through their general education curriculum, because all the faculty understood sustainability and climate science and food systems and how to teach this. If we got to that point, then we no longer need the designation. Then the curriculum is transformed. We do this work because it's really messy and hard. And it's hard because it's hard, and change is hard. This is what a paradigm shift feels like, being in the middle of a paradigm shift. What is it, and how do we do it? We need to be changing the mindset and skills of a generation. So it's disruptive to academic disciplines, because we're not just passing on disciplinary knowledge, but we're passing on something that, you know, we may not fully understand. So that to me is the challenge, and also what's really most exciting about it. I really want to thank you again for letting me just kind of shape my own thoughts and share them. I'm really interested in what you have to say. And again, Ira, thank you for providing this space for all the webinars. They've all been awesome, and they capture, you know, these recordings are also a really valuable asset to capture how we're making this happen.
Well, thank you, Krista. It is always a treat to listen to your webinars and hear you share your passion and your insights. I will connect you up with the folks who asked questions that require follow-up. And I thank all the attendees for sticking with us through the hour and raising such good questions for Krista. Again, please check out our Sustainability Curriculum Consortium website at www.curriculum4sustainability.org, not only for information about upcoming webinars, but also our two soon-to-be-launched cohorts, one on communicating and messaging sustainability, the other on teaching sustainable business, and of course, information about the SCC Faculty Conference in Pittsburgh on June 25th and 26th. With that, thanks to all, and signing off.
Aloha.